Welcome everyone to a really sunny day here in England in autumn, which is an absolute rarity. Don't roast me too much for the sunglasses, I'm trying to get some good lighting and still see. I'm going to start today's video with a question, which is, would you rather have this £20 note in my hand? For those that don't know about the UK currency, this is a £20 note, right? Would you rather have a £20 note and a £5 note, which obviously internationally is still going to equal £25 in value? Or would you rather take away the £5 note and just have the 20? Would you rather have 25 or 20? Now that might sound stupid, but this is a very important demonstration into today's topic. You see, on the Bank of England's official inflation calculator, I had a look as to what £20 would have been just a couple of years ago. So what year do you guys think £20 in today's money would have been worth 25? Is it 1989? Is it 2001? 1987? I'll tell you what year £25 is now worth 20 in today's money. I'll tell you what year I'm referring to. 2020. Less than 5 years ago, you would have had £5 more per £20, right? I know it might not be the cleanest way of describing it, but you get what I'm saying, right? That is insane to think about. A very nice Subaru that just drove past. That's insane to think about how much the money has deflated in the last just under 5 years. We're talking a £5 reduction for every 20. Now, why do I demonstrate this? Why do I show this? And why are we talking about this? Because a lot of people are still living in the traditional sense. You guys will know I've always said from the day of starting this channel, I want to do my eBay selling, I want to make videos on YouTube, hopefully for some money, I'm not going to lie. And obviously I teach Patreon, amongst other things. I'm now selling on Amazon as well. Because I've always understood that the 9-to-5 path wasn't working. But here's the thing, right? It's never mind whether it's worth it for you now in today's market. It's more like, can it actually be viable? You see, this is going to become very uncomfortable for people following the traditional path, because their money is getting absolutely squeezed. Now imagine you earned £20,000. We'll massively scale that up. The actual number was 2469, right? Not 25. So if you earn £20,000 now, that is equivalent to 24. No, the inverse of that. You see the inflation figures, right? And of course, I'm not an economist, so my description's not going to be the most clean, I'm not going to lie. But this is something that's affecting us all rapidly. You know, the money is devaluing at that quick of a pace. Now, you can go back further in history, but I use the example of just 4 years ago because of how substantial of a drop it is and how quick it's happened. Today's economy is undeniably one dissimilar to everything that we've seen in the past. You'd expect that due to economic changes and technology changes anyway, but look at the money printing in today's society, look at the job insecurity, look at the fact that a lot of jobs, especially in the UK, appear to be going overseas, look at the fact that, you know, you can buy less for your money, rent prices are insanely high. And I don't say this to sort of scare anybody, but everybody needs to be aware of this. You know, it used to be the case that you'd put your money into investments or stocks or find ways to make more money if you were someone who saw yourself kind of like I do, you know, perhaps an entrepreneur, someone who's trying to get extra money, get ahead of the curve. Now it's not just about getting ahead of the curve. Think about that, right? You guys can crunch the numbers yourself, but with inflation figures the way they are now, the way they have been for the past 5 years, the way they realistically have been for the past 10 years, wage stagnation, putting your money into I'm not going to say what it is, I'm not a financial expert, I'm not a financial advisor, I don't even want to say, right? But putting your money into something where you can make a return on investment greater than inflation is almost now a necessity. Because inflation figures are that steep, it's hitting everyone hard, and it's going to be hitting harder fast, right? It's going to be hitting harder quickly. Now imagine in the next 5 years if we see inflation at the same rate. So I'm not saying that we are, I'm not saying that we're not going to, and nobody knows really. But imagine if we do. For argument's sake, the average person is going to be screwed, right? And that's just the truth of it. I don't necessarily know what the answers are, but people fail to acknowledge these. And I want to make these videos, again, to explain my experiences, to share my knowledge, but also to, especially for the younger people who might be watching who are my age, people like us now know, right? And what I mean by that is companies can't get away with it anymore, banks can't get away with it anymore, but most importantly understand that, right, whether it's big companies who don't want to pay you a fair salary, whether it is having your money in banks which pay like 2% interest on their savings accounts. Look guys, if you want to have a standard of life similar to not even your parents, but what someone similar to yourself could have had in early 2000s, you're going to need to find something to do. And I don't mean get a job, right? If you want to get a job, if your job's working, some people are seeing inflation matching pay rises, some people are seeing above that. But if you're watching this video, chances are you're probably like me, and honestly like a good 60% of the UK and probably the US markets, and probably most of Europe as well. And what I mean by that is this: you work in a job where you've either got little skills or you've got the prescribed skills that everyone's been told to get, the skills that are now being devalued, i.e. having a degree, because a degree loses almost all of its meaning when everyone's got one, right? So you're probably like me in that sense. I've got a degree. Your job is probably not the best paying in the world, probably makes you under 30k if you live in the UK. I don't know what the equivalent for the US would be, because obviously living expenses are different. But here's the thing, right? You're on the short end of the stick. I'm on the short end of the stick. This is why I have no interest in following a traditional career path, because now it's not about how it was when I was growing up, how I saw it. I always saw it as, I don't want to follow a traditional career path because I want to have nice things in life, like supercars and all that sort of stuff, right? Now it's less about that. It's still about that for me. I still want to have all that stuff. But here's the thing. It's less about necessarily for the people who want to make something spectacular of themselves financially. It's more about, do you want to own a house? Do you want to be able to afford the groceries and not have to buy them on the credit cards, right? People are getting screwed, and it's going to get worse. It's almost bound to get worse, because inflation, name a time in history, in modern history at least, where we've seen inflation decrease. And I don't mean it's gone down from 10% to 5%. When's it gone down to minus numbers? It sounds stupid to say, but we all understand this, right? Barely ever happens, if ever. So it's probably going to get worse. And of course, inflation is calculated based on the price of certain assets and goods, all of which across the board are rising, right? Property prices rocketing, grocery prices rocketing. It's crazy. But here's the thing. Your wages aren't. Your wages are probably not matching inflation. They're probably not beating inflation. They're probably not... You know what I'm trying to say here, right? But here's what I'm trying to really hammer home. I'm feeling it, and I know I'm not going to be the only one. But this is what I'm saying. The cost of living crisis and the inflation crisis is going to keep hurting me and you, the ordinary people, trying to make something for ourselves. You know, I'm not going to lie, I do want to have the luxury lifestyle. But a lot of people out there just want to have a world where they can provide for them, their wife, their husband, their kids. It's not unreasonable. In today's market, if you're following a semi-traditional path alone, you're just going to work a 9 to 5, I don't think you're ever going to do it, right? Just look at those inflation figures. And I know people understand this, because £25 is not an insignificant amount of money. £5 is, even today, not an insignificant amount of money. But you would have basically earned an extra £5, or you'd have had the equivalent, what would have been, of an extra £5 out of every 20 if you'd have simply lived in the year 2020. Do you know how crazy that is, right? It's unsustainable. And here's the thing, I'm not trying to say, oh well, this is the end game, and I don't want to be a fearmonger, because I honestly believe that there are paths away. Some people say go crypto. I don't know enough about crypto to necessarily suggest that. I don't know whether it's stocks, but here's the thing, right? You need to be matching, or ideally beating inflation to maintain a standard of life, because your standard of life is probably going to start to drop. Let's say that inflation is 5%. I'm not saying it is, I'm not saying it isn't. It's different rates in different countries all around the world. And I know someone in the comment section is going to say, well, the UK inflation rates. That's not what I'm trying to say. It's a basic point that I'm trying to reference, right? Let's say inflation is 5%. Has your pay rise for the past year been 5%? If it's not, your quality of life, your disposable income is realistically going down. It's realistically going down, and for a lot of people it has been for the last 20 years, at least here in England and the UK. So now it's not about trying to excel, and that's why you're working hard or trying these different paths. No, it's more about trying to get by, simply trying to get by. If you want to maintain the standard of life that your parents could have, your grandparents could have, you know, you're going to need a lot more money. And at the very, very lowest, you're going to need the money that you make now, because standard of life is already poor for a lot of good, hard-working people. And what I mean by that is, yes, it's England. We still have a lot of great things here. A lot of great things. That's why millions of people are literally dying to come here. I'm not going to say that it's a bad country at all. I love living here. But here's the thing. I can also acknowledge, and people get mad when you do it because it's a controversial thing, and it means that they need to acknowledge some unfortunate truths about their way of life. I can also acknowledge that, look, for your average person earning 25 and below, life's not fun. Life almost can't be fun because, let's not lie, whether it's a human created system or not, life is miserable without money. People tell me, oh, you don't need money to be happy. Look, this is the truth of life, right? I have this car. Now, this is an unnecessarily pricey car, but let's say this. Even if I bought a basic cheap car, right? You know how much more pleasant and easy life comes having a car? You can go different places. You can actually save money on transportation costs with how high train fares are. Think about it. If you don't have money, you can't buy food, or the food that you like at least. You can't go out socializing with friends, which could limit social opportunities to meet new people. It's going to be miserable. And I don't like to hammer this home, but I also need to, because I'm starting to realize it's hard, right? My income is starting to rocket because I run my own businesses. That's a different topic. But if you don't, I worry for you, and you should worry for yourself more, because at the end of the day, right, I'm not trying to be arrogant, and I'm not sure it's going to be the case, but I have to manifest it for myself, right? I'm going to say I think my life's going to be fine either way, because, you know, my income this year has literally like gone over 100% of what it was last year. I'm probably going to be fine. I could definitely beat inflation with that. If yours is not going up by 5% minimum, you are getting screwed by inflation every year. And it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop at all. The situation's getting worse, and it probably will continue to. So just remember this, just be aware. I'm not going to tell you whether you necessarily should or shouldn't invest or whatever, your business, right, at the end of the day, but just be aware. And that's all I'm going to say.